Good evening, and welcome to this week's edition of What's So Funny. On the program tonight is a friend of the show, someone we're excited about. It's Mr. Brent Butt. And of course, we have your host, the man about town, Mr. Guy McPherson.
Thank you, Sam. You did it again. You did it again.
2 for 50.
2 for 50. Sam always screws up the intro, and you had every right to screw it up this week because you're in the studio with Brent Butt. Probably a little nerve-wracking for you.
I'm very uncomfortable.
And
he heard I was handsy. That's why.
And that is why I am in the control room. In fact, when Brent's wife was here a couple of years ago, Nancy Robertson, it was just the two of us, and we were separated by glass as well because I was deathly ill.
As per my request.
Yeah, it was in a rider. And now I'm just coughing a lot, so I need to be able to shut myself off when need be. But welcome back, Brent. And it's been how long? 6 years. 6 years.
I thought you were going to burst into a Bare Naked Lady song there for a second. It's been 3 weeks since whatever it is.
Hey, did you like our song for you? The Saskatchewan song.
If you ever see me walking down the street, just know that song is playing in my head at all times.
At all times. Well, you know,
little green apples. She's saying, I grew up in Saskatchewan. I never saw an apple. There was no apples growing anywhere in Saskatchewan.
Really?
Wheat, barley. That's it. Peas.
Right, you got to go.
All our apples came from the BC fruit truck would come to town. It was a hell of a big deal when the BC fruit truck would roll into town. My dad had it on the calendar. He loved fruit, and it was a big thing. The BC fruit, oh baby, 9 days till the BC fruit truck come. And so a big 18-wheeler with the big BC fruit truck logo on the side would pull in between the CP Railway and the old Bank of Montreal, that kind of, that empty lot there. And people would line up, and you go in, you buy a crate of
your little
plums
green
or
apples.
whatever, buy your apples.
Wow. See? Learn about Saskatchewan. Yeah. But you're telling me that song is not factually accurate.
Well, not to the best of my knowledge. I mean, I didn't go to every nook and cranny of Saskatchewan.
There might have been.
But I don't think I ever saw a goddamn apple.
It's not what you
crab
think
apple.
Of.
A lot of people had crab apples. We used to raid crab apple trees.
Are they not apples?
I guess they are, technically.
Are they green?
At times.
They are little.
Yeah.
We know that.
Yeah, no, you've drilled me down here.
She didn't know the name for crab apple.
I didn't expect you to come to this woman's defense with this level of fervor.
Well, when Nancy was here, we played Nancy with the Smiling Face, and I try to pick a song for my guest, but every song that had butt in it was not appropriate.
Why wouldn't it be appropriate? I like big butts, and I cannot lie. That's in my wheelhouse. That's early 90s, late 80s.
Not going to happen. Anyway, welcome back. Yeah, so you were here first in 2005. Then you took a 7-year absence, and we're here in 2012.
Yeah, I get busy.
And then 6 years. So next time you're going to be here in 5 years.
Yeah,
2023.
reducing. The older you get, the less you have on your plate. And, I can start breezing back to a show every 2-3 years.
Well, that's great. 5 years. We got 5 years. All right. And did you see the blog
start
post?
Looking after myself.
Did you see the blog post? The What's So Funny blog post now available on the internet. There's a picture of you that Sam took at Laugh Lines last night.
Yeah. When I see that picture,
sure.
First of all, I think it's the dreamiest of any headshot I ever had. That day was the best I've ever looked in my life. But if I could roll the clock back and put my finger on a day for the hair loss to stop, it would probably be that. I think that's the perfect amount of hair.
That's a great amount.
Yeah.
There was a lot of my time in my life I had way too much hair.
Yeah, me too.
Crazy. It was not a good look.
Bangs.
Too much. Yeah. Flowing. And some of those, there was a time when I was just too broke to get a haircut when you're a struggling young stand-up. And, you're going to waste money getting a haircut, so you just let your hair grow. I'd never had long hair in my life, and so when I was living in Toronto, when I first started stand-up in the late 80s, 88, 89, there was a time there, 1990, when my hair was, really long at the back, and suddenly I got a couple of breaks. I did a couple TV shows. So they're floating out there, these TV shows with me with long, flowing
You
locks.
say at the back, was it a mullet?
Oh.
It wasn't really mullet-ish, but it grew longest at the back. But it's not like I trimmed the front or anything, kept it all business up front like they do with it.
Yeah.
No, it grew to and it was kind of wavy. It wasn't a great look for me.
But you were in a rock band as a Ute.
Whoa.
Well, I don't know if
Weren't
I
you?
can say that. Me and my buddies jerked around. Yeah, I was in a band called Main Street. I was in two bands, one called Main Street, one called Fast Exit.
Yeah.
Main Street was your classic 2 guitars, a bass, and drums, kind of straight ahead rock and roll. And Fast Exit was much more of a vocal group. I would play guitar, but that was the only instrument, and we would do harmonies and stuff like that.
Oh, would you do the lead or the harmony?
I would usually do the lead.
Yeah.
So
Have we heard your singing voice?
It's terrible. It's god awful. It's just that I'm like George Burns. I don't sing well, but I'm happy to sing. I sang at 2 different weddings because people heard, this guy's in a band, right? We'll get him to sing at our wedding.
Oh,
They would say,
God.
will you sing at our wedding? I say, absolutely. But listen, I'll be up front with you. I'm a god-awful singer. I'm really not very good. I'm not the type of guy you want singing at your wedding. And they think you're being humble.
Right.
And they're like, no, come sing at our wedding. Damn straight, I'll be there. When and where? And so at one of them, I sang The Rose. And like the Bette Midler.
Yeah.
The Rose.
Oh, I know.
So imagine me singing The Rose in a beige suit. And I almost lost it. I almost started laughing because, and I'm trying my best. I'm just aware it's not very good. It's not like I'm being a jerk.
You can carry a tune, though.
Yeah, I guess, kind of. But not on your special day, kind of. But you could see the look on people's faces as I was singing, like, why the hell is this guy singing this song? You could see it across everybody's face.
I love your confidence, though, that you would even accept.
I said I gave them the heads up.
So you were a teenager.
Yeah.
And did you think, well, maybe I'll be discovered here? I need was your
absolutely
goal
not.
to eventually break out?
Not in any musical way, no.
No.
I enjoyed the idea of being a rock star, but I kind of knew it wasn't going to happen. It's like I enjoyed the idea of being a goalie in the NHL, but I knew early on the skill set isn't there.
Hey, did you ever do that rock pose that you have in your stand-up act? The upside down mic?
No, I did not. I never did that.
You were more meat and potatoes.
Because that was too of the time, I think. It was too contemporary. It's only with a bit of distance that you can sometimes observe these things. And at the time, I never, the big wide stance with the upside down microphone. It was too contemporaneous.
Sam was in a band too.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I played some music.
What'd you play?
I played the bass and some R&B in a corporate R&B band.
Nice. Corporate R&B
Yeah.
band.
What was the name of it?
Oh, it doesn't matter. I don't want to disparage them.
Oh, they're still going?
Yeah, they have something going. I'm not
In the Black and Blue?
Well,
It's corporate. It's rhythm and blues.
let's just say a part of it was Groove Kings.
See, he just came up with that. In the black,
In the Black
and
and
blue.
I'm more of a managerial. I tend to take a more administrative role in the world of rock and roll.
Here's what your name's going to be, kid.
I'm all marketing.
But you didn't have the long hair in the rock band, is what I was getting at there.
I mean, kind of long hair, but not,
Yeah.
like David Cassidy long.
Oh, the Partridge Family. That was a great show. I love that show.
I grew up as a little kid. Like I'm the youngest of 7
So
kids.
did I. Grew up as a little kid.
I just left it hanging for you there. I thought, honest to God, nobody's going to jump on that lily pad. Sploosh. Youngest of 7 kids, and then the youngest daughter, Della, she and I briefly shared a bedroom when I was like, I don't know, 4 or 5. And the wall of the bedroom was just nothing but David Cassidy and Donny Osmond, Bobby Sherman, all the dreamboats of the day.
Leif Garrett. Garrett.
No, he came later.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. So I grew up just, I would drift off staring at these dreamy dudes.
That's a therapist.
Yeah.
That's good for them.
I saw David Cassidy in concert twice. Once at Harpo's. Fantastic show.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So,
Classic Club in Victoria.
yeah, it was. He was doing rock versions with his rock band of Partridge Family songs.
Oh man.
But weren't Partridge Family songs rock songs?
Well, they were sort of really poppy, heavily produced. These
I
were
see.
more gritty. Yeah,
Wow.
They worked. They worked. If any bands out there, they should
Now they're
cover some Partridge Family songs.
what fan? The notion of that TV show, The Partridge Family, was based on a family, a rock and roll family. I'm trying to think of the name. What's the name of the family that the Partridge Family is based on?
Does it start with
DeFrancos, maybe?
DeFrancos?
DeFranco family?
Oh, in Ontario, right?
Maybe.
Were they?
The DeFranco family?
I don't know.
If only there was somebody had something in their pocket that we could.
So Brent, we've talked about this before. Or maybe we haven't, but it's known about you that your first stand-up gig, you came out as a polished, 15-year vet from the get-go, right? Like you were good from day one.
It went pretty well. My first stand-up show, if you don't count high school, I did it a couple times at high school. But my first time in a club for strangers who had paid. I think it's one of the best shows I've ever had in my life. It's been 31 years of trying to capture that magic. No, it went really well, my very first.
So, yeah, I've always heard that. But one thing I've never heard is what were your jokes? What were you talking about? Do you remember any of it?
I remember I made fun of a Special K commercial. That's about the only kind of solid memory of the bits.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised that I don't remember more because I spent a lot of time going over it. I was renting a basement suite in Saskatoon with a buddy of mine. We shared this basement suite while we were publishing our comic book, Existing Earth. And I would practice my stand-up for the night. Yeah, into a screwdriver. I would hold a screwdriver like a microphone because I knew from watching stand-up, being a fan, you could tell if somebody didn't know what the hell they were doing from their terrible microphone technique, So I wanted to kind of get the muscle memory of locking that elbow and keeping that thing in front of my yap.
Wow, good.
I was a student of the craft.
You were
from early on.
Yeah, and so one thing about your stand-up is it's so conversational but so precise, like the wording.
Yeah, I mean, I love the language. I like to play with the language. It's fun for me to try and find different ways to say something kind of pedestrian. Try and find a different tumble on it,
Yeah.
And a lot of my favorite comics are people who were really good with the language. Letterman always blew me away. I loved watching Letterman because every episode, something tumbled out of his head that had never been stitched together in the history of the English language before, and it would come out flawlessly and get a huge laugh. And I was always amazed at that. Eric Tunney was another guy like that. God rest him. He was so good with the language.
And with Letterman and Tunney, who you knew well, did that come naturally to them, or was it thought of ahead of time? Like, I'm going to just make this sound natural.
Well, I think it's kind of one of those things where you have that skill set somehow ingrained in you. That's a natural part of you. But then you're also interested, and I think both of them are interested. Or were, in the case of Eric, interested in the language. Similar to how I am.
Totally.
I enjoy it. I enjoy the language, enjoy playing with it. I think I have some natural ability in that regard, and then I enjoy it. So if you have some kind of skill and you enjoy it, you end up doing it a lot. It's like anything. If you practice it a lot. So I'm... in my day-to-day life, if I'm hanging out with Nancy at home or talking with my buddies, I'm not particularly, verbose. I don't. But there's something about getting up on stage in front of people that really flips the switch. And sometimes I hear things come out of my head that surprise me, that I think, how did you come up with that?
Yeah.
I love when you find those ways of phrasing things.
But I bet you people, like the general public who knows of you, they probably don't think of you as a real wordsmith because you're folksy and conversational. But unless they're really paying attention, like that was a great turn of phrase.
Paying attention when I'm on stage.
Oh, the comedy nerds! Comedy nerds are.
Yeah, that'll put money in the bank. Start pleasing those comedy nerds.
The ones who get excited when you go down to the Comedy Mix to work on new material, right?
Exactly.
And
that's a great club. I love doing it.
It's a good time. Do you have bits written verbatim when you go down, or just the idea, kind of flush it out?
Usually not verbatim. On occasion, I don't sit down and try to hammer out bits verbatim. Sometimes they come out verbatim. Sometimes when you the thing that you find funny about an idea will come out pretty much the way it's going to hit the stage. But my thinking has always been you can only be so funny at the kitchen table at 2 p.m. There's something about getting up on stage in front of people, and I think that's the magic of it, and I think it'll always be that way. You're just going to come up with something you wouldn't come up with otherwise.
Yeah.
I just did a corporate show. I can't remember the phrase, but this happened to me like a week or so ago. I was doing a corporate show, and it's one of those nights when you just feel like you're on your game. And I was dealing with the crowd a lot, which I don't do a lot of when I'm doing corporate shows. But they were playful, fun, and it wasn't disruptive, and it was going well. And I worked the room a lot, and I was really. I think I hadn't done a show in a little while, so I think my juices were just flowing. And I remember thinking to myself on stage, God, I should be recording this.
Yeah. I wish you'd recorded a lot.
Yeah.
You haven't.
No, I wish I would have recorded. A lot of those nights at the Urban Well, when you work in the room, just, off the cuff with the crowd, I wish I would have recorded.
Yeah. The best host of any comedy show is Brent Butt.
Oh, I don't know about
Great crowd work, and also you really listen to the comics that are up. I don't know if you're just listening to the last 30 seconds or whatever. You hear a part, but you'd always come back with a killer reference about what was just said. So people go, and it helped the act that was just on that wasn't maybe very good.
Those are my favorite moments when you could come up with something that you could, after the comic was done, they would leave and you'd extra them and tag onto their thing somehow. Those are my favorite moments. One of my favorite ones, I'm blanking on her name now. The comic, she moved to England, black gal from...
Dana Alexander.
That's right.
I can't remember what the bit was because I think, like you said, I was only half listening. I was having a drink up at the bar.
Yeah.
Odds would have it. And but anyway, she ended. This was her big closer, and she screamed, "No pussy tonight!" And she stormed off stage. And I just came on stage singing, "No pussy tonight in my coffee, no pussy tonight in my tea." One of my favorite moments, actually, down at the Urban Well.
Is that a Kinks reference?
Yeah, that's who it is. One of my favorite moments down at the Well, because there was a lot of regulars there. The crowd was maybe 80% people who would come there every week or every 2 weeks,
yeah.
right?
That's great.
So a lot of regulars. So anyway, one night I was on stage, and some guy who hadn't been there before, and I was doing the bit off the top, and to welcome everybody down and everything. And he said something about me being fat. I can't remember what it was. He heckled me with a fat line. And I started singing to him. I started singing the Christina Aguilera song, I am beautiful no matter what you say. And the whole crowd sang, words can't bring me down. And the look on the guy's face, like, oh, God, I've stumbled into a place
Right.
I shouldn't be.
Cult.
Everybody's on board. And he just climbed up and paid his bill and left.
Yeah, and that's another thing that made you such a great host is I would go to a lot of weekly shows, and the host would be the same person, and they would do, here's the exact same words every week. Now, that doesn't mean you didn't repeat material, but you added so much every week depending on the vibe of the night.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of really tried to... I learned early on doing stand-up that it was just way better if I was really present, And there's no way around it. If you're doing your act by rote, which I did for the first couple years, you can drift off. If you're doing the same act, like it's a play, there were moments on stage. I think every comic has had those moments where you kind of come to, like you've been driving down the highway and you don't remember driving. It's like that. You come to in the middle of a joke. And everything's going well. The crowd is enjoying, but you have no memory of the last 2 minutes because you're thinking about your laundry or, do I have any ham in the fridge? I feel like a sandwich. Do I have to stop and get a ham on the way home? You're thinking about whatever, and you've just been on autopilot. And there was one night where it was really bad. And I was just thinking about it later in the hotel room. And I just thought, I'm never going to do that again. I'm never going to. It's not that I'm not going to do this, never do the same jokes again. But they're not always going to be in the same order. I'm going to have to find a way to bridge one thing to the other. I'm going to try and find a way for some circumstance in the situation to kickstart the next bit or something. And the result was it just made me way more present. And I feel like from that time on, my comedy got better.
And it was just that one show to the next where you changed, or was it gradual where you slowly became more present?
No, the next show after, I remember the next show was in Niagara Falls, at a Yuck Yucks in Niagara Falls. And that was the night after I'd kind of had that, I wouldn't call it an epiphany. It wasn't that big, but it was like this moment where I got to be more present. And I used to make a little set list and stuff like that before, and I just didn't.
No, just remember.
Went up,
and that's why you've forgotten half of your act.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is the downside of it, is that I know there's a lot of quality material that I've let drift into the ether.
Well, I'm always here to remind you of it. But hey, we got something now that we do that we didn't do 6 years ago. Make the guest do the heavy lifting.
Oh, what are we doing?
You're going to improvise that.
This is Brent Butt. You're listening to What's So Funny on CFRO 100.5 on your FM dial, Vancouver Co-op Radio.
Oh, very nice. Now, I got to record that, right? Right, Sam? I'm not used to being in here.
That was my warm-up.
Oh, you got another one coming?
Am I doing it again, or did you record it?
Well, you said it was your warm-up. You could do it again.
No, you said you didn't record it.
I'll be honest, we're recording the whole program.
No, I mean,
This is being recorded?
I have to record the time that you said it.
I see.
Yeah. All right. Hey, so Brent, so you started off gang bang. No, that's not the right phrase.
Whoa.
You started off.
Man.
I don't know what you've heard.
What's the phrase? Gangbusters. As a stand-up.
Yeah, I just found out, by the way, not to get sidetracked, but I just found out where that phrase comes from.
Gangbusters or gangbang?
Gangbusters.
Okay.
The other I was familiar with from some old movies I saw. But coming on like gangbusters. Yeah, you've heard that phrase a million times. The thing, it came from an old radio show. There was a radio show called Gangbusters that started with sirens and machine guns and somebody screaming. And it became famous for this thing. It was like, why is this show starting? So it would scare the hell out of people. And so it became this thing. Like anything that started really abruptly, boom, right out of the gates, was like what gangbusters.
Wow.
This guy's like gangbusters.
Is that apocryphal or is that legit? Do we know this is true?
Yeah. All I know is I've heard it.
Okay.
And it sounds,
It sounds good.
If I were in the booth, I'd be Googling.
So sorry, I interrupted you there.
No, what were we talking about?
You talking about
You started
gangbanging or
off.
something?
You started off gangbusters in your career from that first night, and so how soon after that did you start making a living being a stand-up?
Yeah, you have to define a living.
Well,
right?
I would say
I didn't do anything else from 1988 onwards.
that's when you started stand-up.
Yeah, I started stand-up.
Other than high school.
Yeah, I started stand-up in 1988, and at the time I was publishing a comic book with a buddy of mine. We'd started a publishing company, and we were doing this thing. We were going to try and take off and become comic book publishers. I'd written a story. He flushed it out into a big epic thing, and I said, well, we're never going to sell this. My idea was initially, I'd come up with an idea that I thought we could sell as an 8-page filler in the back of a Marvel, Savage Sword of Conan or something. They were often looking for 8-page fillers. And so I came up with this idea. I thought maybe we could sell it to Marvel. I told my buddy Colin Olexon about it. He lives out here now. And anyway, he flushed it. He said, let's go for coffee again. Because the next day I went for coffee. He had overnight flushed it out into this epic thing. And I said, well, now we're never going to sell this.
It's too big, you mean?
Yeah. We're not going to be able to sell our epic idea to anybody. Now we have to do it ourselves. I've always been kind of entrepreneurial. So I said, we've got to start a publishing company. So we started doing this comic book. I had a history working for newspapers and in the printing business, so I knew people who I could get a cut rate. They would let me go in and use the machine to burn my own plates and stuff like that. So So we were able to do a print run of 1,000 comic books. We did 2 issues of that. And so we were doing that when I started doing stand-up on Thursday night amateur nights in Saskatoon.
Where would these comic books be sold? Just in Saskatchewan or?
No, around the world.
Around the world.
Still, when we first started, I hadn't moved to Saskatoon yet. I was still living with my mom. I was 19 years old.
Tisdale?
Yeah, Tisdale, Saskatchewan. I was living with my mom, just me and her. And I would say to her, you know, as she was going to bed, I would say, listen, if you hear me talking in my room at 2 or 3 in the morning, don't start yelling up at me. I'm on the phone with England. I'm trying to hammer out a distribution deal with a comic book distribution company there, you know. So I would set my alarm, and I would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I would call England and talk to a distribution company, and then make a deal, send over 100 comic books or whatever. So it was actually going pretty well. We were nominated for a Golden Eagle Award for best cover by an independent, but it was one of my first big business lessons under capitalizing a venture. We didn't have enough capital to carry us to where we could get profitable. So we sunk before we left the dock, so to speak.
You lost me there with undercapitalizing.
Wow.
You need X amount of capital for any venture, right?
Sure.
Yes, you do.
Sure you do. What do you think?
Sam's a
You just
business
go
guy.
into business with rainbows and dreams? Sure, that's a part of it.
But you need enough to make that 3rd comic book.
Yeah, that's when the gravy starts
Just
flowing.
make it. You're living at your mom's house.
You know, I'm not saying it's a huge ton of dough, but you know, you're going to print 1,000 comic books. I'm not down at the Xerox,
right?
You know,
right. And did you?
But anyway, so at night, on Thursday nights, while we were doing this, I would go out and do stand-up. And so the business venture failed, but, you know, my heart wasn't really in it. I wanted to do stand-up. And my partner, I don't think his heart was really in it. We were having a good time, but he had notions of joining the Navy, which he did. So when our business venture failed, I went all in on stand-up, and he went and joined the Navy.
Huh.
And he was in the Navy for 20 years or so, something like that. 15 years, I don't know. He was in the Navy for quite a while, navigating destroyers. He was and I went into stand-up. And he would sail around the world, and then every now and then, because Vancouver's on the ocean, it's right down there, you can see it, his ship would pull in, and he'd call me up, we'd go for coffee. And he was saying to me one day, I'm getting out of the Navy. I think computer animation is going to be a big thing. And I want to get into computer animation. And so he did. And now he's a computer animation director here in Vancouver.
Wow. And did you hire him for Corner Gas Animated?
No, did not.
Okay.
I'm not nepotistic.
He's got to earn it.
No, he's far too busy.
Yeah, but it's funny. Like, if your first night didn't go so well, I wonder if you would have been that into stand-up.
I would have been. I have no doubt that I would have stuck it out. If I had done, 10, 12 terrible shows in a row, I might have, I don't know. But I don't think any single punch would have kept me out of the game.
Right. You could take one punch here or there.
Yeah. And, even if you had, the first show went great, but that's not to say, every show got better and better. The first show went great, second show, not so much. It wasn't bad, but it certainly wasn't as good as the first one. The third one was actually kind of flat, kind of borderline bombski. But at that point, I'd had one really good show and one decent show, plus the 2 that I had in high school. So I kind of felt like, okay, I did something wrong here. It's not like I can't do this. I messed up. What did I do wrong?
Yeah, to analyze it.
Yeah, start, the craft portion of the program.
Right. For the next 30 years.
Yeah.
How long?
You never stop learning it either,
No, I guess not. I never learned it in the first place. Hey, that photo that we put on the blog there, you have a great autograph signature. Now, you were a kid who was in bands and you're doing comic books, so obviously thinking the fine arts.
I was thinking showbiz.
Showbiz. So
Not so
were
much
you
fine arts
in your
as
room
showbiz.
in your room practicing your autograph?
No, I was in school. I was in class in school. The teacher would give me hell and kind of mock me too. why are you practicing your autograph? And I'm like, well, people are going to want this. I would just say flat out, God forbid I become a huge star and I don't have a snazzy signature.
Yeah. So
It's pretty good.
Yeah, you nailed it. You nailed it. Now you got this. By the way, last week our guest was the original Brent Butt Orchestra, Barry Greenfeld.
Oh, Barry Greenfeld.
Yeah, he says hi, by the way.
Giggles.
Yeah.
Uncle Giggles.
Yeah. And Sam asked him
How
about
much of it was just incessant giggling with Sam?
about
80%?
Yeah, it was.
40 minutes of the hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He plays a character on a talk show I'm on.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he plays my uncle.
So Sam, if you don't know, is a
Giggles.
sidekick of the Brett Martin Show,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is a
I
monthly talk show. And
You got this sidekick thing down.
Hey,
You're
man,
like
it's
digging
number
your
one.
heels in.
I love it. Ed McMahon's my favorite. I have a Hank Kingsley tattoo.
Hey, now. That's
what
the
it
high
says.
water
Show 'em
mark.
it.
It's the high water mark.
Exactly. How pathetic
On the
is
other
that?
arm, you should get applesauce. On the
Or
other
no
arm.
flipping, maybe. I don't know.
Well, that was more Larry, though.
Yeah. Well,
You
good point.
gotta pick your side, man.
Yeah.
Are you
well,
gonna?
I'm all in on Hank.
You be in the
Good
chair
point.
or the sofa?
So Sam had a question for Barry last week. Of course, Barry couldn't answer it. But what was it? Like, any outstanding memories
Yeah.
from the Brent Butt talk show? And, I
He's
can't
like,
remember.
oh, it was all great, and just started laughing. I think he played a
that's
song.
right. You just laugh the whole while during the show. I mean, if you're looking for a guy to bolster your confidence as you pursue the
man.
comedic arts, hang around with that guy. You're going to get an inflated sense of your ability. Absolutely.
Yeah, he told a story where he said he was laughing at a show, and Erwin Barker said to him, "What did he just say?" And Barry said, "I have no idea." And Erwin said, "I knew it. I knew it."
Just laughing because I should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got some weird inner dialogue going on. He's like, there's like an old 1930s animated cartoon playing in his head at all times.
But any strong memories from that talk show? I was a regular there. I loved it. How long did it go on?
I
by the way?
remember one night you were speaking of sidekicks,
Yeah.
and you'd mentioned Sean Proudlove earlier.
Yes.
We did this thing one night, and we would plan this show like Sunday, about 11 a.m. I would send out an email on Sunday to some of the funny guys in town, say, okay, what are we going to do for the show this week? I would put forth a real reasons list, which was kind of like a rip-off of the top 10 list.
Sure.
Real reasons why I haven't gotten my teeth fixed, or real reasons why I didn't go to college, or whatever, right? And the local comedy community would contribute some, and I would compile a list from those. So it was always things like that. And if people had ideas for fake commercial spots, fake sponsor spots, or a guest idea, Erwin Barker would often come on as somebody who'd just written a book about something. And he was always so great. So anyway, one time Proudlove had this idea. And so we played it out, and it worked so great. I remember that little portable microphone cassette player combo I used to have that I would start the shows with, Lyle Lovett's blues band, and I could talk into the microphone portion, and it would come out the thing. I used to start the shows at the well with it all the time. It was a little handheld, like a cassette player.
Sure.
But the top of the cassette player was a microphone, so you could speak into it and speak over the music that was playing. It was a hell of a rig.
Oh, man.
The Radio Shack at its finest. And so anyway, I had one of those. So the notion was Proudlove, we told the crowd that we were going to have a contest, that we had a contest to see who would be my sidekick. And this fellow entered the contest, and he won. And so Sean Proudlove comes out of the crowd like a schnook from the audience. And so I explained to him, you won the contest, and he's all very excited. He's going to be my sidekick for the night. But I said to him, you can see up here, we don't have room. Like, we didn't think ahead.
Oh, man.
Out here, physically, we don't have room for you to be my sidekick. So I'm sorry to say we can't do it. And he hangs his head like he said. And the crowd is heartbroken. So Proudlove says, well, how about if I can't be here, I could just go to the back of the room and kind of, I could be like your back kick. So he was my back kick instead of my sidekick. So he stood at the back of the room with my little handheld PA system. And he played it so perfectly, you wouldn't hear from him for big stretches, 11, 12 minutes, nothing, right? And then you just hear like, ha ha, yes! Like these things would come up from the back of the room, and it would flatten me every time. His timing of when to find those moments. Oh, it was so good. It was so golden. And I myself, I kept forgetting he was there,
Right.
I was going on with the other parts of the show, and then suddenly from the back of the room, you betcha.
It's like a drunk Ed just chiming in.
Flatten the crowd and flatten me every time.
But how long did that show go on for? A year or more?
Yeah, I'd say probably like a year.
Yeah.
It was labor intensive to what, the labor to value ratio. I don't want to throw you with business terms again, but the amount of value, it was fun. It was, it was some giggles, but a lot of people had to do a lot of work to make that happen for nothing really, other than just a bit of fun.
Right. Yeah. Hey, you're doing the Butt Pod now. It's podcast. Well, you're kind of doing it. You have 10 episodes?
Yes, we've had 10 episodes.
10 episodes.
Over the 8 years that I've been doing it. No, I do. I started.
I really
the
enjoy
podcast.
it.
I like the idea of a podcast. I think it's a good podcast. I enjoy.
It is.
Sometimes when I'm on a flight, I'll listen to my own podcast. What's that tell you about me? Everything you need to know. Because sometimes when you're in the moment, but I do edit it afterwards, and you're thinking of it really critically and analytically, and chopping out bits and that kind of thing. So. Sometimes months will go by, and then I'll be on a flight, and I'll be like, "Oh, well, listen to that conversation me and Graham Clark had, or something."
Right.
So I feel like it's a good podcast. I like it, but the problem is, I started it at the same time I started a new TV series, an animated version of Corner Gas, and that's very labor intensive. So it's difficult for me to commit the time to doing the podcast. But what happened was, when I started the podcast, I thought, what I should do is I should create a video companion to it. I'll start a YouTube channel for the Butt Pod.
Little promos.
Yeah, little promo spots. I'll interview my guest, whoever the guest is. And if I go on the road doing stand-up, I'll throw some stuff. I'll shoot a little video. And the more I did it, the more I got into it. And I really like doing these little vlogs and little videos just from my garage game room studio. And it's become... I wake up in the morning and check my YouTube analytics. I'm like, I'm just having a lot of fun doing this YouTube stuff.
So how can we find that?
It's
YouTube
on the internet.
search.
YouTube, the Butt Pod.
The Butt Pod, okay.
Yeah, make sure you put in the. This is crucial.
Well, let's go see what happens right now.
So
I'm surprised you don't have Butt Pod bookmarked somewhere.
This is a push-up enhancer for butt inserts in your pants.
Butt inserts.
Literally, enhancers and shapewear.
I don't know. They didn't need to put the graphic up there. He just showed me the graphic. It's disturbing as hell. So I'm going to bed right after this. I'm going to be staying
after you buy them,
staring at the ceiling.
You're going to keep doing the vlogs, the video logs.
So if you go to the YouTube, go to the Butt Pod, you'll see me interviewing guests.
Yeah.
But also doing stand up on the road and talking about the Corner Gas
backstage stuff.
Shows. Yeah.
Yeah, but will you do the podcast intermittently?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I have not,
whenever you can.
I have not killed the Butt Pod. We're very close to my writing due. As of today, actually, I finished my final script for season 2 of Corner Gas Animated. Mm-hmm. So the scripting is where it's really labor intensive for me. Once the scripting is done, I can start working an 8-hour day. And so on the weekends, I can, I'll start scheduling some guests coming in here in the next little bit.
That's great. And it doesn't really matter with podcasts because if you subscribe, and everyone should, then whenever you do another one, boom, there it'll be in your device. Yeah.
So go to, wherever you find your podcast, you'll see the Butt Pod there, iTunes, Stitcher, whatever. Or you can just go to thebuttpod.com, listen to it right there.
Got Ian Boothby said it's his favorite show to guest on.
I heard that. That's fantastic.
He was one of the 10. Guest. Yeah, I really enjoyed the DJ Demers episode too, by the way.
When I was Ian was on, we're both a couple of comic book nerds.
Yes.
He's far stages above me. But there was a moment in there where we were talking about Alpha Flight and Guardian and his wife Heather McDonald took over the thing, and you could see him get excited. He rolled up his sleeves and he said, "Oh man, this is going to be great. It's great not to hold back." And he just started going full on comic book nerd, and it was awesome.
And I was sitting there going, I don't know what they're talking about. It's like financial comic books. Put them together. And then also...
I'm layered, man. I'm layered.
You are multi-layered. Yeah. So I was wondering, TV, movies, podcast. If they all paid the same, and you could only choose one, which one would it be?
TV, movies, podcasts.
Yeah, not stand-up. I'm not including
So
stand-up.
I'm able to do stand-up all the while?
All the while,
Continuing?
yeah.
TV, I think.
They all pay the same.
Even though it's a lot more work. I really enjoyed like doing when I did the movie. I did 2 movies in 1 year. I did 2 movies in my life. They were both in the same year. 2014, I was a movie star. We did Corner Gas, the movie.
Yeah,
and
I watched it again just recently.
No Clue.
Yes,
my Vancouver-based detective comedy thriller, and I couldn't believe for me how much less work it is, because when you're doing a TV series, it's just a machine that you have to keep feeding. You know, there's another script, and I'll be writing next week's script, acting in this week's script, and editing last week's script, and it's just, you know, and somebody needs this next draft of the next week's thing, and it's just a machine, and it's 17-hour days. And when we were on a camera turnaround, if there's a 7-minute camera turnaround, I would run to my desk. We had a traveling desk that would go wherever we were, and I would sit down, I would work on whatever I had to work on next, and then they would call me back to the set, and it's a crazy machine, and
that is crazy.
And it just wears you down. It would be like that for about 3.5 months every season when we were doing Corner Gas, and I would be mentally done by the end of it. So when we did No Clue, when we start shooting, the script has already been written for months. You know, I'm not going to be doing any editing for months because it's all this one-off thing. So on a camera turnaround, it's like, well, what should I be doing? Sit down and go on Twitter. That's what you should be doing. Go have a snack. That's what you should be doing. So I love the pace of doing a movie versus a TV series. But there's something about, I feel like I'm a TV person. I feel like, you know, that's what I grew up loving. I love TV more than movies. I love movies, but you know, my main window into movies was on TV, and I love TV series. Even though we only had 2 channels growing up, I was totally enamored by television.
So you like the most labor-intensive thing, but that's because you are a producer, you're a writer, you're a star. Like, if you're just Fred Iwanek, for example, he could just go show up and do his lines and then go on Twitter.
I suppose,
Get a sandwich,
I guess.
right?
There's a bit of that, yeah, I guess. There was always a part of me that was envious of the actors going back to their trailer in between scenes.
You never could do
that'd
that.
Be great. Wouldn't that be awesome? Go back there. What do they do back there?
Yeah, so keep in mind, I said the pay would be the same.
Yeah. No, I just think that I would probably, that would be the thing I miss the most.
Yeah. So Corner Gas Animated now, it's being picked up for a second season. Yeah. My son gave it the thumbs up.
Excellent.
And he loves those kinds of cartoon shows for grown-ups. But
primetime adult animation.
Yeah, he likes it. So I'm wondering.
When you say adult animation, that sounds filthy.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
that's right.
Every time you say, I think of like Heavy Metal or something. Remember that cartoon from the 70s, Heavy Metal, or the 80s?
Oh yeah,
man. Might have been the 80s.
It was
that
the
a
early
movie?
80s.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
a movie too.
I didn't see it. Yeah.
Great soundtrack on that film.
And it's all like, you know, there's a lot of smut in it.
Right.
Yes.
Fritz the cat.
No, there's a whole new much more graphic than
way
Fritz.
better.
Oh, was it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Now, I got to interrupt quickly here, sorry, but sometimes we get messages from listeners. Sometimes
I
they
find
ask
that hard to
questions.
believe,
Well,
but-
you know,
If I buy this premise.
I have family. But here, I got just a note from somebody who's listening from Beth Ann, just, we love you.
Well, that's nice. Yeah. Thank you, Beth Ann, for taking the time to communicate that. That's nice. I love, the older I get, the more I'm a proponent of kindness. The more I think it's the most valuable thing in the world.
Yeah, because you used to be a real jerk.
Yeah, it was real number one a-hole.
Well, okay, so you're on season 2, getting ready. You just submitted the last script, right?
Yes.
That's exciting.
It is.
Now, what cartoons, it doesn't have to be when you were a kid even, did you think of like this is the peak of comedy cartoonery?
The Simpsons, for sure.
Simpsons.
But prior to that, I was always fascinated by the Flintstones.
I
How
was gonna
funny
say,
the Flintstones
it was good.
A lot of gags.
A lot of people think that the Flintstones was a kids show, but it was prime time. It was the first prime time animated show. It was made for adults.
I didn't know that.
And yeah, it came on prime time when
Yeah.
it first hit the airwaves.
It was like the Honeymooners.
Yeah, it was based on the Honeymooners, and it was, just so many some really solid jokes in there. So I saw it as a little kid. It would come on at noon, and you'd eat your lunch and your little sandwich and soup or whatever, and watch the Flintstones, and I was always cracking up. I just thought it didn't feel like a kid's cartoon to me. Like, I watched all the kids' cartoons, Saturday morning cartoons. I was big into cartoons that were made for kids, absolutely. But then when you would watch the Flintstones, it felt like this is more grown up. The jokes are funnier. You can tell these jokes aren't aimed at kids.
Yeah.
And there would be jokes that I wouldn't get, and I would hear my older brothers and sisters laugh, and I would have to, delve into why.
But they didn't get racy or anything, did they?
No, not racy, but just
no.
like maybe a reference I wouldn't
Oh,
get
I
or
see.
something
Yeah,
like that.
like an old, yeah.
Because it's not for kids, it's for,
So Corner Gas animated, how is it better than the original Corner Gas, and how is it worse?
Well, I think when you animate something, you'll never be able to duplicate what the actors bring to, you can't anthropomorphize a 2D character that will ever completely, have as many facial expressions, or, the actors would bring a lot of funny physical, just little things, subtle eyebrow movements,
Right.
And we try and capture that. The animators, we put together a big data bank for the animators of expressions of all the actors and what their kind of body mannerisms are during certain things, because we're trying to capture it. It's a tricky situation when you're trying to animate a known show with known characters. If you're starting from scratch, you can do what you want, but we're trying to duplicate living, breathing people that millions of people were familiar with. So we were trying. You got to do the work and put that in.
It worked with Gilligan's Island.
It didn't really.
Oh, no. But they did an animated version.
But it didn't. I wouldn't say it worked necessarily.
Fair point.
So, but we'll never match what the actors could do live. It's great hearing their voices, and they bring that into it, and so that really gives it life. That carries it. But you're always going to miss that little bit of, little tweaks.
But how is it better?
There are some.
You don't age, for one.
Yeah, I have season 1 hairline, like
Nice.
I will have forever and ever. 2003 hairline.
My goodness.
That was right around when that photo was taken.
Yeah.
That was maybe like 2000, but pretty close.
Good looking shot.
Yeah, I mean, you'll never age, and I don't have to shave when I'm acting. I can go in shirtless, really. I wouldn't do that to anybody, but I mean, theoretically,
Yeah.
if I breezed in just my gunch, it wouldn't stop production.
It might.
People be like,
These
"Oh,
days it might.
Yeah.
that's weird, but okay, let's roll." So I like that. I like being able to, and it used to take 4.5. It would take 4 days roughly to shoot an episode. Like, to act out an episode would take about 4 days. We do an episode in about 4 hours.
Oh, wow.
Of the animated. Yeah, wow.
The acting, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're kind of in and out. So it's kind of nice. And everybody kind of goes about from an acting standpoint, you're going about your life, and then you breeze into the studio for, a day. You act out a episode, and then go back to your life. Whereas we used to have to uproot, and we would go to Saskatchewan I was there for half the year.
But you love that. Who wouldn't?
But
In the summer.
I love Saskatchewan. It's where I grew up. But my home was here.
I know. People still don't know that.
I've been living here since. I haven't lived in Saskatchewan since the 80s.
Right.
So,
You spent more of your life here than
I've
you did
lived
there.
more in Vancouver than I did anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, those were very formative years. That 0 to 20.
Mm-hmm.
But so my home was here. My life was here. It was great to go back. I have friends back home and family in Saskatchewan and Regina where we would shoot. It's great to see them. But you're so busy, you don't really get to. Didn't get to hang with my buddies or my brother, who lived there.
Right. It's time for New Joke, Old Joke.
Good segment.
New segment. Since you were here last, we've started. It's about a year old now, I'd say. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
New segment, old segment.
That's right. Where we ask our guests to tell us either a street joke they've always loved but they can't say on stage, or a joke from a fellow comic. Either they know them or they don't know them. Doesn't matter. That's something, because I know you were a comedy student. You said that right off the top. And I remember, years ago, before I really knew you, I did a little back page thing for Vancouver Magazine. I got various people to kind of do this segment. And I asked you, and your joke that you told me then was a Jack Benny joke. You thought it was perfect. It was just like your money or your life.
Right.
And there's a long pause. I'm thinking. Yeah.
That is kind of the perfect joke, because it also sums up his character so well. It's not a joke that anybody can tell.
Right.
It was a perfect joke to that character.
Yeah.
Speaking of, so before we get into the segment, I ran into in the street the other day was Todd Allen. Remember, if it's Todd Allen, he used to do stand-up here locally.
Yeah, he lives in California
He lives in
now.
California, has for many years now. So I run into him, young Warren Beatty, right? He looks like a young Warren Beatty. Anyway, so we started kicking around, talking about the old days and stuff like that. Just as we're standing on West 4th talking. And anyway, he said, what are you up to? What are you doing this weekend? I said, actually, Nancy and I are heading down to New York. We're going to see Elaine May is in a Broadway play there. And he goes, I don't know, Elaine May. And I said, she was part of a big comedy team called Nichols and May, and then she went on to be a big screenwriter. And he goes, Nichols, you used to always say Nichols and May at the end of when you would say what comedians were on, you'd say Steve Martin and Eddie Martin.
Right.
And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Because at the end of the Urban Welsh shows, I would always say, big hand for all the comics who are on the show tonight. And I'd start listing comics. Then I would start adding Steve Martin, Eddie Murphy, Jonathan Winters, Stiller and Mara, Nichols and May.
Yeah.
What a night.
And to him, those
So
are
he was
just
like,
words.
I never knew who that was. But anyway, I'll do both. Here's a street joke. I like this street joke because it's fast.
All right.
Guy walks into a psychiatrist's office completely naked, except he's covered in saran wrap. Psychiatrist says, I can clearly see your nuts.
It's a great joke.
I like that joke because it ends before you expect it going to.
That's right.
I like that. So it's good if somebody says, "Tell me a joke." That you're in and out with that one, nice and quickly. Although sometimes I do like to punish people who say, "Tell me a joke." Like if you're at a party or something, and there's always a guy who goes like, "Oh, you're a comedian. Tell me a joke." And so right away I start telling him a joke, but I'm making the joke up. And my whole purpose is to see how much of this guy's life I can take. It's like a game show in my head. I'm counting down seconds of his life that he'll never get back. And I make the joke long and specific and boring. And then I backtrack. Oh, I forgot to tell you, the rabbit was from China, right? Or something. Oh, no, did I mention a skateboard? Yeah, that's a big part of it. And until finally, see how long you can go before the guy goes, what the hell kind of joke is this?
I thought you were a professional.
Yeah. But in terms of stand-up, Irwin Barker, I don't know how many of your guests choose an Irwin Barker joke.
A few have, and I have, yeah.
He was, I mean, talk about a guy who's good with the language.
Yeah.
He was so fun for me to watch. I remember the first time I ever saw him, I took the train from Saskatoon to Winnipeg to play the club there. I got booked to co-middle the Yucks in Winnipeg. No, actually, I think I was full middle. Anyway, the first night of the week is amateur night, and there's 2 or 3 people go up that weren't particularly exciting. And then Irwin Barker goes up, and I dropped everything. And just, who's this guy? You just start hearing him talk, and his first couple jokes, and it was just like, put everything down, and I'm watching this guy. But he used to do a joke about, he said they're building a seniors home, but it's for prisoners, basically. There's prisoners who are serving a life sentence. Now they're in their 80s or 90s or something, and they need special care, right? So they're building basically an old folks' home for criminals. They don't have a name for it yet. I suggested shady characters. That was so the first part of the joke floors me already.
Yeah.
And then he'd say, because there's these guys in there, they're 90, they're 92. They're serving a life sentence for crimes that don't even exist anymore. The guy's about to be hung for eating one of the king's peaches. And that phrase always floored me.
Right.
The guy's serving a life sentence for eating one of the king's peaches. It doesn't get any better than
Wow.
that.
Yeah, I've never heard Irwin do that. And
Oh, man. That floored me that bit. Because the shady characters was such a great borderline cornball, but brilliant,
you got to stop
genius.
for a second and go, yeah.
Oh, so good. And the timing, the pause between shady and characters, it can't be too much, can't be too little. It's got to be just right. And Irwin would nail it night after night whenever I saw him do it.
Wow.
And then the second part of that joke, eating one of the king's peaches.
Yeah, so many great jokes from Irwin Barker.
I miss that guy so much. I often fluctuate back and forth between feeling ripped off and angry that I had my Irwin Barker time taken away from me, and alternated between thinking of how blessed I was that I got to. I wasn't just a fan of Irwin; I was a friend. We would hang out. He was a regular poker buddy. I got so many extra hours with Irwin that other people didn't, who were fans of his. So I fluctuate back and forth between rage and feeling blessed.
Right.
It's not a healthy place to be, right? Emotionally. Like that?
Yeah, it's a roller coaster.
Yeah, I'm usually much more even keel.
Except for,
when it comes to those kind of things.
Yeah. Well, you're getting, as you say, you're getting older, you're getting kinder. Kindness means more to you now.
Yeah.
And here's something, social media. So you're on Twitter, right?
I was a fairly early adopter.
And other things.
Instagram.
And you sometimes get political. And we don't think of Brent Butt as necessarily a political comic because you're not a political comic. But you'll get political, but it's all from a position of kindness. And I'm thinking, too, and correct me if I'm wrong, because Corner Gas has fans all over the world. Maybe some of them are more politically conservative.
Yeah, many are, yeah.
And do you get blowback on that?
Yeah, on occasion. Because, like you said, I'm not talking about a ton of political issues. I'm not talking about taxation. I'm not talking about, the pipeline, should it come through or not. I don't know enough about it. I'll let smarter people than me figure out. I mean, I do think that's one of the... I don't think enough people are saying, maybe I don't have the full picture on this before I start barking like a rabid dog about this. I think more people should kind of, float your notion out there, but you got to be a little more open-minded. If you're not spending 8 hours a day studying the subject, don't be so hot-headed about it. Mm-hmm. Be a little cooler about it. Be open to the notion that maybe you don't know everything about it. There aren't enough people doing that. But like I said, when I get political, to me it is political, I guess, but it's not about. It shouldn't be about politics for me. It's kind of like I start beaking off when I think people are being bullied, pushed around, or people aren't. When there are policies being put in place specifically to not look after other people, when we have the ability and the resources to do so, and it's just a decision that, no, I don't think they should be helped out. They're not, those people I just want to give a slap and just go, grow the hell up,
It's about basic human decency.
It's about human decency, human dignity, and God, I don't know when the hell that became a political issue. When should we help these people or not? When we're absolutely 100% able to, and the numbers and the facts show that we can, and there's more benefit to having them in here and helping out than not in the first place. Even if we were being selfish bastards, it's not even altruistic. It's to our benefit to help people out. Now it's an extra level of a-holishness when you're like, even though there's benefit to me helping them, I'm still going to step on their throat. That's when it's like, that's not cool.
But some of your fans would go, hey, Brent, stop that.
Oh, yeah.
Do they?
Yeah, absolutely. I often get this on Twitter with people go, you're going to lose half your fans because of something. I'm like, anybody who's going to bail because of a tweet is not a fan, and good riddance.
Right.
See you later.
Hey, going back to your butt pod before we get out of here, what's the the most impressive thing that you have learned in the More Smarter segment, where you get your guests to make you more smarter?
Speaking, I would go back and listen to them. I went back and listened to the one where I talked to Charlie Demers.
Yeah.
And I realized I didn't put the echo effect on the More Smarter.
I know, one of them you didn't.
I was listening to it going, what a maroon. Because normally I do the More Smarter, and I had a big echo effect afterwards. So this one is just me with no effect going, More Smarter.
I'm going to add the echo effect for the podcast.
Yeah, you should.
Did you? Are you getting more smarter?
I like to think I am. I don't have a tremendous ability to retain things that aren't particularly of interest to me. So so they're fun in the moment. One of the things, because a lot of it it's basically trivia. It's trivia based stuff, right?
Yeah.
My favorite piece of trivia that I learned as a result of researching for the Butt Pod, my favorite bit about trivia is where the word trivia comes from.
Oh,
yeah, it's got
from the old gangbusters show.
Very meta, right? But the word trivia comes from in the old Roman days. One of the policies, they're very administratively strong, the old Romans. It was one of the things that allowed them to rule this empire. They would create systems, and communication was a big part of it. Vast distances in those days, no phone or anything, right? Communication. And the dissemination of knowledge was a big part of what made the Romans able to hold this empire for so long.
Allegedly.
They instituted a policy where any place that 3 or more roads intersected, they would put up basically a bulletin board, and people could put up little bits of information, and I'm having a sale here, or a teacher is looking for work or whatever. So that's where the word trivia comes from. Trivia, 3 roads, and 3 roads where little bits of information are stored. That's where the word trivia comes from.
Wow.
There'd be a lost parrot sign up there.
Exactly. Lost parrot.
Hey, that's you got to go
one
back.
Of the old golden bits.
From Brent Butt. Oh, by the way, there's a Juno category for a comedy album. Brent, you never recorded an album. Come on, you got to do it now.
I am seriously thinking about doing it.
Good.
I'm thinking about shooting a special, like an actual video special that people can watch, and just also releasing the audio from it.
That's great. And would it be
for me now? It's more about that. It's more about posterity and putting I was here kind of out into the ether. Mm-hmm. I mean, Corner Gas is that for a big part of who I am as a guy who did this TV show that a lot of people watch called Corner Gas. But when you boil everything away, I'm a greasy nightclub comic. So I want more of that to be out there.
Recorded in a greasy nightclub.
Yeah, I wouldn't want. I want to do it in a smaller room, like a club, not a theater.
Yeah, that's good. I like that too. Now you could also do 2. You could do one of classic Brent Butt. Stuff that you don't do anymore, maybe.
Yeah.
That is so good as a way to, leave it there.
Yeah.
For posterity, and then the stuff that you're doing now.
It's the same stuff. Who are we kidding, guy?
No, you've forgotten more than most comics have ever written.
That's because I used to drink a lot.
You don't anymore?
I don't anymore. I mean, I still enjoy a cocktail, but wow. I don't get lit up like I used to all the time. I can't take it anymore. I have too many duties. I can't, if I get lit up, the next day is a write-off. I don't have a hangover like where I'm in pain. Oh. It's not unpleasant. It's just I absolutely can't function.
Yeah, sure.
Like my brain doesn't work, and I just I can't answer an email. I had too many drinks, that kind of thing.
Oh, really?
And now too many drinks is 4.
Oh, right? No.
I used to have 4 before the night started in the old days.
Too many, and that's 4 over the course of the whole night.
Yeah,
from 6 p.m. to
I mean, once you stop
10:30 when you hit.
Once you stop being able to, like this is way past my bedtime when we're doing this. I'm normally hitting the sack around 10:30.
Well,
maybe.
Thank you for being here. By the way, I'm going to make you more smarter because I went down to see you at the Comedy Mix. You were running your set for the Just for Laughs Gala, which you hadn't done in 18 years. 16 years.
Yeah.
And how did that go, by the way?
Really good. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. The set went really well. And there was one bit in there that was kind of a hit or miss bit. It either kind of does really well or kind of blank stares, and I decided to go for it, and it hit.
Good.
Yeah.
And this will be televised
Yeah.
at some point, right?
Yeah.
Great. That's good.
My manager was beside me in the wings laughing because Brad Williams went on before me.
God, he's so funny.
Oh, yes.
And he got a standing ovation. He told this story about how he and his wife met doing threesomes. She's this tall Asian beauty, and he's a little person.
Yeah.
And they like to do threesomes, and they met up because there was supposed to be 3 people getting together for whether, I don't know, it's a website or whatever where you hook up. Anyway, the third person didn't show up, so the 2 of them went for coffee or whatever, and they ended up getting married. That's how he met his wife, and they still, time to time, they still do threesomes and that kind of thing. Anyway, the crowd's eating it up, killing, and then Jeff Dunham is the host. He comes out, and because he's a ventriloquist and Brad Williams is a little person, they do this thing where he's like his puppet, and the crowd is like, kill. They're standing on their feet. They can't. And my manager is laughing, and she's punching me in the arm. She's like, no, how are you going to follow this? And this is when, I absolutely clicked into the urban well. And when that madness was finished and the standing ovation ended, and then Jeff Dunham gave me my introduction, and I went out, and I said, it's great to be back in Montreal. I haven't been here in a long time. I had a crazy afternoon. I had a threesome with a midget and a tall Asian woman. It was, I never had anything like it. And the room, but then I said, so I got a huge laugh, and then I said, they might not be able to use that. I'm going to go back and come in again. And I went out and walked back in. And so then I did the set, and it went really well. But it was like that kind of taking what's the funk or the weirdness or the vibe of the room, how can I either surf it or smooth it down? What do I got to do to it? It's all those years of emceeing shows that...
Yeah, listening and knowing, being present.
And then the producer came up to me after the night was over, and he said, I love a comedian who spent time in the editing room.
So they know they can just edit that out, or they might not. We don't know.
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense unless they play me after.
Brad Williams is the only comedian I've ever seen at the Comedy Mix get a standing ovation.
Yeah,
in the middle of the show too.
Yeah.
During the comedy festival.
Oh, they were just eating him up. He was killing it.
Yeah. So here's my more smarter segment for you. It's my pet peeve of the day. Grammatic pet peeve. I've mentioned it before on the show. I heard you say an Americanism, which is grammatically incorrect. I graduated high school. We don't say graduated high school.
Who doesn't say it?
I mean, everyone says it, but you shouldn't say it. You shouldn't say it. Graduated from high school. You don't graduate high school. High school graduates you, Brent Butt.
I don't know about that.
No. That is absolutely true, and I don't want you to just.
But there's always
slough it off.
There's always this moment in the language over the course of the years where some old fuddy-duddy, I'm not pointing fingers, is saying these young kids aren't saying this the right way, and next thing you know, it's the way all the linguistic professors are talking.
Yeah, this isn't one of them though. So I want you to.
I graduated from high school.
There you go.
Oh.
There you go.
Doesn't sound right.
I know.
Shut up, Sam. You're supposed to be on my side.
It reminds me of a tweet that I put out one time, where the tweet was, people wonder when you're supposed to use who and whom. You use who when you're trying to refer to a specific person. You use whom when you're trying to be a douche.
Right. And I'm with you on that. We never should say whom.
But there was a time when the Guy McPherson of the day, back in 1890, with up in arms.
True. I grant you that. But just write it a little longer. Graduate from. Okay, Brent, we got the vlog going on YouTube, the Butt Pod.
The Butt Pod.
Go check it out. Corner Gas Animated. That's the title, right?
Corner Gas Animated.
That's coming out season 2 when?
Don't know. Like in the spring. I don't have a date for you. We have to deliver so that it's ready. It's in their holster for April, but then they'll make the decision of when to air. But it'll be sometime in the spring of 2019.
And it's a fun show. And holds up against the original. And, it's different.
Yeah.
But it's also the same.
I think everything that you liked about the old show, if you did like the old show, all the familiar elements are there, and then it just has, we can take the fantasy bits a little farther than we ever could in the live action.
Perfect. And then, of course, Corner Gas is still running somewhere, everywhere.
Speaking of Gilligan, that's me. I'm the new Gilligan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it comes on like 3 times a day, I think.
Yeah, and I watched the movie, the Corner Gas movie, just a week or so ago. Yeah.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah. All right, Brent. Thank you so much. We're going to see you again in 5 years.
At least.
Right? 5?
Yeah.
What do you mean at least? Does that mean earlier or later?
I don't know. I'll probably, 2 years from now, I'll probably be knocking on your window here. Hey, guys, remember me? I used to come on your program.
Yeah, right. Okay, Brent Butt. Well, wrong one.
Oh,
come on, Sam.
I should be in the booth.
You really should. Oh, there it is. Hey, here we go. Remember these guitars, Brent? They were here 6 years ago when you were here. That means it's the end of our program. Next week, our guest will be all the way from Estonia.
Yeah, Ari Matty.
Thank you. Ari Mahdi will be here. And then we got a comic from China is coming on. These are guests coming up.
Fang Ju.
And then He-Fang Ju? Yeah. And then December, we got Steve Bays and Parker Bosley from the Mounties. And Hot Hot. They're going to be here.
See, I'm getting inspired listening to how far in advance you have your guest planned.
Right? Sometimes it's like that. All right. So we'll talk to you again next Sunday night at 11. Thanks, Brent.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
You're welcome.